What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Occult Review with me, your host Belart, Wright. And today we are reviewing another another chapter of Dragon Ball Super, the manga. This will be chapter 63, Merus' Resolve. This is my second take at recording this. The initial one was very low energy, so I just figured I'd give it another shot. And another thing is that my Viz wasn't working for me yesterday, so I wasn't able to record this on the day of. So this will definitely be late. Of course, that'll affect the popularity of this video. Won't get as many views, but I don't really mind that. I'm just trying to get my thoughts and hear about the thoughts of others as well. So this was a pretty good chapter overall. I quite enjoyed it. Very good chapter for Merus, a character I initially did not like, but he has grown on me, and this was a very good chapter for him. So we'll go ahead and get into that pretty soon. Right now, I'll give you guys the play-by-play of the events. We open the chapter up with Merus facing down Moro. Jacko is here as well, and Jacko is wondering where Merus was, and Merus mentions that he apologized to Jacko first, then he mentions that he was tied up with other matters. Matters including training Goku and I guess hanging out with Whis for a bit. But we cut back to, well, same scene, but we see that Merus is still talking to Jacko. Moro is speechless. He's trying to get a bead on just who this Merus is and what he's about, which is actually uncharacteristic for Moro. He's been very boisterous this whole time, but for whatever reason, I guess because this character crossed through his barrier, he's very off-put by Merus. Maybe he also remembers the last time they had a fight and to where he was captured. So that's probably in the back of his mind. But Jacko mentions that they are totally doomed currently, and Merus just says that he's aware and that he's come to finish up some training. Jacko's wondering whose training he's talking about, and Merus confirms that it's son Goku's. And this confuses Jacko, and he's also confused about the fact that everybody has seemingly disappeared. And for the first time, Moro also recognizes this. He looks around and sees nobody. It's an empty battlefield, and now he is upset by this. He says, what are you, and where did you send them? Merus just says he sent them, for the moment, he sent them somewhere safe and far away from here. Moro says, do not trifle with me, and he dispels his barrier, because at this point there's really no need for it. His whole point of even using it was to keep other people from the battlefield so he can have his way with the heroes. And from there, Moro uses his abilities to sense where the others have gone, and Jacko makes mention of this. He says, hang on, can't he track people? And immediately Merus comes to the conclusion that he has to buy the guys some time so that they can be healed. So he charges at Moro, and he goes for what looks like an attack, but then he reaches into his pouch and pulls out his extending staff, the staff that is similar to Goku's Nyoibo. And it's a really cool staff, and I really like Merus' fighting style with it. There's a couple of panels and anticipation frames of him hoisting the staff above his head one-handed, and the anticipation frame is just amazing. All the fluidity of the motion here is pretty good, and the action pose that Merus takes before he comes down on Moro is fantastic. And he does bring that staff down on Moro very hard, and Moro does manage to block it. What he says to him is, he says, I sense no life energy in you, yet I did earlier. Was that mere camouflage? And he says, are you some manner of deity? And Merus just smirks. Merus backs away with a quick kickoff, and he spins his staff in one hand very skillfully, and then he offers another attack to Moro's right bicep and forearm. Moro again blocks, of course, and Merus pelts him with a multitude of quick strikes with his staff. This is a really cool looking attack, and Moro does manage to avoid it. He is fast enough to avoid it, and he goes to retaliate with this huge wind-up punch. And this punch would have caused some damage, I think, but Merus does manage to avoid it with this cool backwards dodge, reminiscent of Neo from the Matrix. and he gets into position, waits for Moro to be just above him, and he uses his staff's ability, well, his staff's function. His staff works very similar to Nyoibo actually. Instead of mysticism though, it uses what seems to be technology to extend itself. There's a button, he presses it, it beeps, and it extends and does this magnificent uppercut to Moro, drawing blood from the goat-based villain and sending him to the ground, well, really sending him up into the air and then back to the ground. This surprises Jocko, and Moro does this really interesting barrier to actually balance himself, reminiscent of Babidi from the Buu saga. It's really interesting. No other barrier really has been used to slow a descent before and slow an ascent, but Moro uses a barrier for specifically that. Other characters tend to just use Bukujutsu, their flight-based ability, to slow their momentum if they're moving too fast. But he chose to use a barrier. So I'm wondering if this barrier has some type of anti-gravity functionality. It kind of reminds me of a character from another anime I really liked called Law of Ueki, named Robert. He was able to use bubbles to either make heavier gravity or lighter gravity. It's really cool. But anyway, from there, Moro dissipates his barrier, and Merus disextends his staff, and Moro wipes the blood from his face, and he's very surprised by it, and he says simply, "I see," with a big grin on his face. And Merus is back in a fighting pose. Jocko is confused by the whole matter, and he wonders, was Agent Merus always this strong? Before they continue their fight. And then we cut over to a mountainside nearby. Here we see that Dende is surrounded by the bodies of the Z fighters, and this mountainside is actually really close by. Not just you can actually see the battlefield from where these guys are. There's a big plume of smoke in the background where Merus is fighting Moro, and Dende looks up from the center of where he's standing, and he sees Beerus and Whis. And I forgot to mention, but all the Z fighters, of course, are down. Gohan, Piccolo, Vegeta, Android 17, Android 18, and Goku, they're all down. So that happened last chapter. The most egregious injuries are possessed by Piccolo and Goku. Goku really had a number on them, but Piccolo too. They're both done for. And Whis says, "I left the Galactic Patrol behind." And Beerus says, "What do I care?" And Beerus says, "Getting kind of sick of doing favors for these guys." And Whis says, "They are indeed a handful." And Beerus looks pretty annoyed by the whole situation. But he sees that Dende is down there healing Goku. He says, "But the God of Earth can save them now, right?" And Whis confirms. And Beerus says, "Okay, time to go." And Whis wonders where, and Beerus says, "To Bulma's place." Apparently Whis promised him food, so to get him to come to Earth, probably so that Whis could witness the situation with Merus. So he probably knew Merus was going to do something stupid and brought Beerus here under the pretext of getting food from Bulma. And Beerus says, with a very funny look on his face, he says, "Preserving Earth's gourmet goodies is the only reason I ever saved these idiots," which is fair enough. I took umbrage with the statement before because Beerus doesn't really save these guys. I guess technically he does because he didn't kill them. I guess technically that's saving them. And we saved them from Frieza last time in Resurrection of F. But other than that, Beerus hasn't really saved them. I don't really know about that one, about that statement. Anyway, Whis says, "But of course," and then they head off to Bulma's place. And Beerus says, "Hey, I feel like we're missing someone. Where's Merus?" And Whis says, "Oh, it seems he got separated from us." And Beerus says, "No harm in leaving him behind." Or sorry, that's what Whis says. Whis says, "No harm in leaving him behind." And Beerus says, "Whatever, one less mouth to feed means more for me." And then we focus back on Dende healing Goku. And Gohan asks him, Dende, is he gonna live? Referring to Goku. And Dende says that Goku's wound is so deep and his chi has reached the level of the gods that healing him will take some time. We can't really tell how much time passes here, but I imagine it's quite a few minutes at the very least. It's not, Dende's power typically seems to be almost instant. I think on Namek it took a few moments, but it didn't take like too long. And Dende says, I can heal you too in a moment, Gohan. But Gohan says, leave me for last. He tells him to take care of, in this order, he says, take care of Dad, Piccolo, and Vegeta. He didn't include the android, so I'm not sure if Dende's powers will even work on them, since it does seem chi-based. And initially, I questioned the tactical, the strategic importance of healing Piccolo second. It makes a little bit of sense because he is quote unquote the strategist. But you would think that Vegeta would come before Piccolo. But then I took some time to think about it, and it does make sense for Goku and Piccolo to be first because their injuries are the most grievous. They could actually die from their injuries. So it does make sense. At first I was thinking like, I don't know. It seemed like you resurrect the two strongest people first, or you recover the two strongest people first. But, you know, based on injuries, yeah, Goku then Piccolo, that makes sense. So then Goku is revived, or recovered, I should say. Revived seems kind of apt because he was near death, basically, with his injury. And his injury, though, isn't fully healed, it looks like. I believe they didn't make mention that it wasn't fully healed. I believe he probably has all his chi back. But the injury Moro gave him left a huge scar on Goku that does not go away for the rest of this chapter. So, I mean, for Moro sticking his whole arm through Goku, the actual affected part of his chest is actually pretty small. So, I don't really know what's up with that, but it could just be artistic license. But Goku comes back with a surprised look on his face. Dende is happy. He says, you seem to be healed. Great. And Goku asks Dende, where's Moro? And Dende confirms that he's battling the angel. And Goku's like, you don't mean Merus, do you? And Dende doesn't know Merus' name. Merus just helped him get through the barrier, and I guess he headed straight to Moro. They might have talked about maybe they made a game plan about how to heal everybody. But that's probably all that was exchanged. And Goku says, darn, what could he be thinking? And he explains, any angel who fights for real outside of training is doomed to disappear. Dende wonders what Goku is talking about, but Goku just tells him with a serious face, Dende, take care of these guys, okay? And Dende promises that he will. And Goku says something very interesting before taking off. He says, thanks as always, Kami-sama, which is really interesting because these two have a kind of interesting history, interesting connection to each other, I should say. Because Goku, in his wisdom, when he was a little bit younger during the Z era, he actually thought ahead to actually go to Namek to get a new Kami. Why no other character thought about this is baffling, but Goku had the foresight and forethought to actually think about this, and Goku actually is a good reason that the Earth is in the state it's in and not similar to something from the Trunks saga, because they still have the Dragon Balls. They can actually still, restore things once villains have run roughshod. So yeah, and Goku went to Namek to go recruit Dende to become the Guardian of Earth. Of course, it was Elder Mori who recommended Dende, due to Dende's talents and his connection to Gohan and other Earthlings like Krillin. And yeah, so these two have a very interesting history, and Goku is basically the reason that Dende is Kami of Earth. So I just found that very unique. This panel of Goku saying, thanks as always, Kami-sama, like recognizing Dende as Kami-sama, when that was something he himself helped basically he almost single-handedly made that call. So Goku does something else interesting right after he flies to the battlefield instead of using instant transmission. I'm not sure how much energy either uses, but I've seen Goku use instant transmission with very little energy, so I think the energy would be comparable. I would actually think that flight may take more energy than instant transmission, just based on what I've seen previously in the series, but I guess instant transmission must take more energy if Goku doesn't use that instead of flying. But I guess it's just so close that, you know, instead of trying to focus his energies, he could just fly over there and it's fine. So I just thought it was interesting he flew over there instead of using instant transmission. And next we cut right back to the battle with Moro and Merus. And Merus is doing this really cool staff spin, and he's keeping Moro at bay with it. He's using his staff very defensively. I'm surprised that he's able to do this, but I guess he has a bit of a power advantage over Moro. And he continues to do this defensive barrier with his staff, and Moro uses these I-beams. And Merus actually blocks the I-beams with his staff by keeping it, steadying it with both hands. But then Merus kicks it out of his hand, so maybe he kind of planned that in advance. And with these two attacks, it may be that he's using Gohan and Piccolo's abilities. These may be Piccolo's I-beams, I'm not sure. And then the kick looks reminiscent of something Gohan or Vegeta would have done. I think I've seen Vegeta do this kick before. I think I've seen Gohan also do this kick before. So he may be using their abilities in the way he fights at the current moment. Merus' staff goes spinning up in the air, and then Moro follows up with his own technique, a goat-like headbutt, which sends Merus flying. So Moro is powerful enough to challenge this angel. Moro is pretty strong. I get the feeling that Merus isn't quite as strong as Whis, but Merus is still an angel, and they're still quite powerful. Merus then uses a multitude of ki blasts, Moro uses a multitude of ki blasts, but Merus expertly dodges with his unique agility, and Moro charges at him again, comes with a wicked right, and as he's doing this, Merus desperately calls for his staff as Moro is approaching, and he does manage to block Moro's punch, but he only blocks it just in time. So these two are, Merus still has the advantage, and he's fighting with restrictions, but this is a very close fight between these two. And Merus says, are you concealing your true strength? What's the meaning of this, and why are you relying on a tool? And we know that Merus is relying on a tool because if he were to fight Moro directly, he will immediately be vanished. So he has to fight with a buffer between himself and Moro. Previously it was his pistol. He would just amp the pistol with his powers, but now it's a staff. So as long as he's using something that I guess isn't his fist, and as long as he isn't using his full strength, then he can get away with little skirmishes with these weaker characters. So Goku shows up, and he yells at Merus as he lands, and Merus looks at Goku. He's very happy to see him. Moro is surprised. He says him, and of course he'd be surprised because he isn't quite yet aware of Dende's healing ability. Goku says, you gotta stop, keep fighting, you're gonna vanish, to Merus. And Merus jumps back away from Moro, creates some distance, lands next to Goku, and he's happy. He says, it would seem I'm still intact for now. And Goku's pissed. He says, well, fall back, it's my turn to fight. Basically, he's very commanding here, and he powers up to Ultra Instinct Sign. So he's very concerned about Merus at the current moment. And Moro says, were you saved by the Namekian's healing abilities? So I don't know how Merus knows about this. I don't know if he's inherited memories for Piccolo as well, which I don't think he would inherit memories, but I'm not sure. It could just be knowledge he's gained from his long life span, but he's been in prison for millions of years, so that doesn't seem likely, unless the Namekians were around back then. That doesn't seem likely. Could be, but I don't know. He could have learned that when he was on Namek, which seems the most likely, but I don't know. It seems to be a statement. He probably should know about that. Goku seems to have powered up to full, and he rushes at Merus, or he rushes at Moro. Moro does not seem concerned at all about this. He dodges Goku effortlessly, and Goku can't even get a hit in. Moro's dodging literally everything. And Beerus and Whis can sense the fight from where they are. And Whis mentions that Goku is having another go at it with Sign. Beerus wonders if Goku can win, and Whis very much doubts it. So Goku doesn't stand a chance here, apparently. Moro just throws a single punch at Goku, which sends him flying, and he probably would have been knocked out clean if Merus didn't catch him. Merus slows his descent with telekinesis and puts him on the ground. Goku is still struggling to get back to his feet, and he says, "Thanks for that, Merus. Keep in mind this is just a single punch from Moro, and Goku is just out of it this much." And Moro says, "That form of yours already failed to defeat me once. Did you think this time would be different?" And Goku says, "Damn it, you spent all that time teaching me Ultra Instinct." He says that to Merus. "And still, I can't get the hang of it." And Merus, being the good teacher that he is, says, "Not quite, Goku. Your training worked. One last push should trigger it." And so we're going to get to that trigger in just a bit. And Goku's very baffled by this. This face is actually pretty funny. He says, "A push? What do you mean?" And from there, Merus does actually get captured by Moro. Moro grabs the back of his neck and tries to get his powers. He tries to copy his abilities. What abilities he tries to get, I don't know. But I suppose because Merus is stronger than him, he's like, "Yeah, I want what you got, buddy." And he says just as much. He says, "I can't claim to know who you are, but copying your abilities should prove useful." Merus just chops his hand with staff he summoned. So his a couple of pages ago, he dropped his staff in order to save Goku with his telekinesis. So his staff, I guess he put it back in his pouch, and now he just summoned his angel staff, a different type of staff, and that's what he uses to chop Moro's arm. Moro looks shook by this, but he retracts his arm and just regrows another one thanks to his Namekian regeneration. Merus spins his angel staff around and then aims it at Moro in a very cool way. He says that copy power is a hassle, so I'll have to seal it off. And Beerus starts to sense that Moro is using his angel powers, and he tells Whis, he asks Whis, he says, "Are you sure about this? He's using those angel powers." And Whis says, "As you know, Lord Beerus, I do not act except under your direct command." And Beerus is perturbed by this. He sees that Whis is being a bit facetious. He says, "You sneaky little. So the Grand Priest is going to be pissed at me. Let's get back there and stop him." And from there again, Moro charges at Merus. Merus says, "I was born an angel, meant to maintain a neutral position outside of good and evil." And he continues the speech as he goes about dodging Moro's attacks. The first dodge is really cool. He uses his staff to jump upwards right over Merus, or right over Moro. I keep getting their names mixed up. In the initial review, I never messed up once with this, but whatever. And right after the first jump, he's right above Moro's head. He does this really wicked telekinetic blast, which pins Moro to the ground. It's really cool, and Moro is pretty much stuck there. Which is different. We've seen telekinesis before, but I don't think we've ever seen it to this level to affect an opponent like Moro. And it also seems to have a paralysis effect as well, because Moro cannot do anything. It's either that or Merus is just pinning him to the ground with all of his power. And he takes his angel staff and kind of aims it like a pool cue in this really cool panel. And then he pokes, he stabs Moro's, I think his left hand absorption gem. So that one's gone. Instead of sealing it, he just shatters it. So they keep calling it a seal, but he's just shattering this thing. I don't know if he's using angel magic too, but yeah, he just completely shattered this jewel in Moro's palm. And Moro takes a swipe at him. No longer, I guess he broke out of the telekinesis. And Merus says, "So even if the universe is ravaged or destroyed, I'm only supposed to sit back and watch." So Throughout this whole exchange, he's going to be continuing this speech. So I guess this is something he's thought about for quite some time now. And Moro questions things. He says, a sealing technique? How could you possibly? And Jacko's also confused. He says, an angel? What's that, Merus? Am I hearing this right? And Merus continues with his speech. He says, however, throughout my time working alongside the Galactic Patrol, something blossomed inside of me, a sense of justice. Goku is shocked by the events that are proceeding as Moro charges Merus once again, and they have an exchange to which Moro throws rapid punches at Merus, and Merus blocks them all. And Merus continues, now the Galactic Patrol agents may be the elites of their own homeworlds, but on the universal scale they're helpless. And Jacko is upset by this. He says helpless, a little bit insulted, I guess. And Merus continues. He says, many of the criminals willing to violate galactic law are stronger than those agents. Even so, the agents act in accordance with their own convictions and ideals. Valiantly, they struggle to protect the galaxy. And then we see a shot of the Galactic Patrol agents leaving the Earth. They're in space, taking off. There are a total of 5 ships. And then we cut to a Rico ship, and he's guarding Yamba along with 2 other Galactic Patrol agents. And Rico says, we've collared every convict besides Moro, so we're heading back to the Galactic Patrol prison, or the Galactic prison is what he says. And he's speaking to somebody on the radio. They say, understood, we will prepare to receive the prisoners. And the other 2 Galactic agents, they say, which just leaves Moro. And the other guy says, once these guys are locked up again, we'll head back to help. So I guess they'll come back to Earth once everything is, once they've dropped off their load of prisoners. And we cut back to the fight with Merus and Moro. Merus gets his staff in a position and then flicks Moro upwards with it. And a really cool looking panel. And then he takes aim. Moro does not expect this. He's very shocked. And then Merus does this really cool looking, like he aims his staff like a rifle. Even with the back of it with the angel's ring on it. That's on his shoulder like a buttstock, so it's really cool. And then he takes aim and snipes at Moro and hits the other jewel that's in his right hand palm, and he breaks that one as well. Moro is completely shook at this point, and Merus says, seeing those agents in action, I came to realize that peace in the galaxy is worth hanging on to. So at this point, just like Piccolo back in the Garlic Jr. saga, Merus is starting to vanish. So his interference is actually starting to affect him. He is breaking angel law, so he is facing the consequences as we speak. Jacko confirms this and says, hey Merus, it looks like you're not all there. And Goku is shocked. And Merus continues to dissipate. He continues his speech as well. He says, especially after meeting you and your people, Goku, that strengthened my resolve further. And Goku starts to realize what Merus is doing. He says, no, Merus, what's the point? He says, what's the plan here? Cut it out. So Goku's panicking at this point. This is not, we don't typically see Goku like this. So he's very concerned for his friend Merus. And then he says, this next attack is most likely my last. And he powers up and a ring is formed around him, the angel's ring. And I guess either he's about to use his angel abilities, or he can no longer control his he can no longer hide his angel heritage. And Beerus and Whis touch down, and Beerus is incredulous. He says, geez, his body's already see-through. And Whis says, yes, sadly, it looks like we're already too late. And Beerus basically accuses Whis of knowing that this will happen, which is most likely true. Whis is very good at playing dumb, and Whis continues to play dumb. He says, who, me? Not at all. And Beerus basically panics. He says, what kind of excuse are we going to feed the Grand Priest? And Whis says, we shall have to think on that. So yeah, this is probably gonna spell some bad stuff. I think this might spell some really bad stuff for these guys going forward. This might actually lead to that ever elusive Grand Priest heel turn that we all want. So Hopefully this does lead to that. All right, and even though he's disappearing, Merus continues to power up, and Moro is pissed. He says, "Why you?" in typical villain fashion, and Merus charges at Moro. Goku screams out, and as Merus is charging at Moro, he thinks back to his training with Goku. They only had a couple of days worth of training, I think, which I think shook out to being a couple of months worth, if I'm not mistaken. Because the time chamber they were in it wasn't as powerful as the one on Earth. But it cuts to this memory of him and Goku where they're sitting side by side in the chamber, and Merus says, "You saved this universe so many times over, Goku." And Goku, being Goku, he says, "Yeah, I guess so. It's not something I think about much." And Goku continues, he says, "It's just the strongest guys out there tend to be villains, so..." And Merus makes a good point. He says, "Yet despite their wicked deeds, you prefer not to end their lives. Why is that?" And Goku makes a really interesting point. This is really a little bit deep for Goku. We actually get some insight into his psyche, like what he's thinking about when he does this stuff. He says, "Because if they rise up and do bad stuff again, I just have to become stronger by then, right? I'll fight them as many times as it takes, and at some point, just maybe, they'll decide to join the good side." And Merus kind of thinks on that. He says, "Reforming villains then. The Galactic Patrol takes the same approach." And Goku says, "Putting it that way gives me too much credit, man. I just think that way is much more exciting, I guess." And Merus is taken aback by that. He says, "Exciting, you say?" And he comes to the conclusion. He says, "You are a fascinating specimen, Goku." And that is cut by the present day of Merus charging at Moro. Moro powers up a ki blast, pretty large one actually, from over his head. Chucks it at Merus, and Merus just plows right through it. This man is not going to be stopped by something as trifling as that. And Moro powers up a bigger ki blast at that point, something that looks to be a variant of a spirit bomb, but probably from Moro's own power. But before he even gets a chance to launch it, Merus is moving way too fast, and he's right in his face in no time. And he punches him square in the head. And it's a really, really good panel too. I really like all this panel, all the movement from Merus to get to Moro, and this punch is really killer right here. I really like it. And he shatters the gem in Moro's forehead and sends Moro on a collision course through a bunch of different mountains, or I guess not exactly mountains, but they're rock formations. He sends Moro through a bunch of different rock formations. Yeah, that was a pretty powerful punch, and he directly broke angelic law for that one. So that's gonna be the biggest punishment of them all. Moro's on the ground reeling, similar to how Goku looked when Krillin threw that rock at his forehead. But yeah, Moro's on the ground reeling, and unfortunately, Merus is now pretty much, his body is turning to nothing. He's disappearing in wisps. I can only describe it as smoke. And Jacko's wondering what's going on. He tells Merus to slow his roll because he's vanishing off the face of the earth. Goku looks absolutely distraught. I don't think I've ever seen Goku look this helpless before. He looks absolutely terrified. And he says, it's an exclamation point. So I guess he's yelling it, but it looks like, to me, this doesn't look like yelling. To me, this looks like trauma and despair, pretty much. And he just screams Merus' name. And Merus continues to talk to Goku. He says, "Goku, he says, Goku, you should achieve Ultra Instinct at your current strength. It will be far more stable than ever before. You will not fall to Moro, nor to anyone else for that matter." And then cut to Jacko and Goku says, "Care to fill me in?" And at this point, Merus is nothing but a head and shoulders. He's again engulfed in mist. His body is turned into mist. He says, "I've come to love this galaxy, this universe full of excitement. Please protect it all." And that's it. that's the end of Merus, and all that's left is a little bit of mist, and eventually even that disappears completely. And yeah, that's the end of a pretty fantastic character, and I'm gonna go into that at the end of the review. We're closing on the end right now, and Jacko says he's gone, and he screams Merus' name as well, and even Merus is like, just gone, poof. And Whis says yes, sadly. And we get this panel of Whis. We can hardly see his face when Beerus says he says Wright. And this kind of, typically when they use this panel, it means that a character is like contemplating deeply, maybe experiencing some deep emotion, some deep sadness. But then we cut to Whis' face, and he has a determined look on his face, and he says he was an awkward little brother, and he kind of lingers off on that one. So yeah, he might be feeling a certain type of way. And then finally we cut to the final panel of the chapter, which is this really sad picture of Goku, but we see that he's bubbling with rage, similar to Namek. And apparently this is the trigger that Merus mentioned earlier. So the thing is with this, Goku is about to evolve into his, I hate to call it a transformation, but for Goku it is a bit of a transformation, which is the Master Ultra Instinct. He is about to evolve into this this ultimate form, this ultimate technique, and this technique represents no-mindedness, which is a complete lack of emotion and thoughts, and when you can just move without any resistance. You can move without any mental resistance. You can respond to a situation just based on what the situation needs, because you just have that automatic response in you, and you don't have to, nothing gets in the way of that chain of information. But the thing is that's weird here is that it appears that Goku is gonna use emotion to tap into this form that represents no emotion. So a form that represents no emotion requires emotion to tap into. That's just a little bit weird and contradictory to me. And to me, it takes things back to just basic Super Saiyan. Like, again, you just need intense anger to activate these transformations. Like, especially a transformation that requires like no emotion. That to me, that's just weird. I feel like that's kind of a just a contradiction. I prefer the way the anime does it, to where like you're just on the precipice of life and death, and it's almost like a resurrection. It is really weird and grandiose and epic. But you know what? I'm gonna wait till next chapter to see what they do with this. But if it is activated by anger, like Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2, then that's just like, that's too many of them activated by anger. You probably do something different. But other than that, man, I did enjoy this chapter quite a lot. And this chapter really gave me an appreciation for Merus as a character. I really like the fact that Merus got to do a lot here, got to fight a lot, got to really show off what he's capable of. I really do enjoy Merus' fighting style. I think it's really cool and unique for Dragon Ball, and I think it actually reminds me of Gambit from X-Men. Like, there's a lot of Gambit-esque agility, because Merus fights with his staff, and Merus also has a bunch of other cool things he does with his staff, like when he uses it as a rifle. Like, that's really cool. So I almost wish that Merus was a regular character who was a little bit less powerful, who could fight more, because he's that cool of a character. And it's really it's a really big shock from how I felt about the character at the very start of this. Like, from when he was introduced, I thought that Merus was just annoying. I thought he was annoying. I thought he was too powerful. I thought he didn't make sense. But really, by the end of this, like, it's a complete 180. And I think a lot of other people will feel the same, because I think Merus had enough time to grow on us, and I think he had a really big effect on the series and on the characters, because he's allowed Goku to master Ultra Instinct. Like, that training really, in this right here, this trigger is going to be the trigger to get Goku to go to master Ultra Instinct. So I think in many ways he was much more effective than 16 was in this very same role, because 16 really didn't do much before he was killed by Cell, and it never really connected to me how 16's death triggered Gohan Super Saiyan 2. I've seen a lot of videos where people made really good cases to how this could affect Gohan and how thematically it makes sense, but still, the story buildup wasn't there for 16 and Gohan to have that moment. But this right here just makes so much more sense because Goku had plenty of time to train with Merus and get to know him, and the fact that Merus made this sacrifice to protect Goku and his friends, that means quite a lot. So yeah, Merus was a very well used character. This chapter alone really built up his mystique and awesomeness and appeal. It showed us what he could have been if he stayed around, if he was able to stick around. And I would actually be interested in maybe like a side story to see like one of his Galactic Patrol adventures when he worked for them. I wonder what the hell was the point in healing Goku, Piccolo, and then Vegeta in that order. And I wonder if it'll even come into play for whatever reason. I wonder if everybody's gonna just be healed anyway, including Gohan, next chapter. So we'll see. My guess was that would have played into things, or that is gonna play into things next chapter, but I can't really say for sure. Anything else? No, I think we covered pretty much everything. So rip Merus, rest in peace Merus. Awesome character, fantastic fight scenes. Yeah, he's just all around dope character, and I regret pretty much calling him, I don't know if I called him a Merus before, but I at least was pissed that he was strong for no friggin' reason. But the whole time he had the most logical reason out of them all to be as strong as he was. So that'll be the end for me, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this chapter. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because I am very much so starving for subscribers at this point. I only got like 13. So appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a great day. Take care of yourselves and your families. Till next time, guys. Peace.